I hope everyone is well.
Good morning.
Today we have the opportunity to participate in the second webinar. This webinar will help us to prepare our small project, okay? This time we will work more closely on the right approach and how it can be put into practice in the school world. For this, we have the presence of Dr. Carlos Trapani, Venezuelan, lawyer and alumni of La Salle, currently director of SECODAP, a vice partner organization specialized in working with children and adolescents. To facilitate our understanding, I ask you to select the English language in the translation balloon that's appear in the Zoom menu. We will have an excellent translator, Lucrecia, to whom we are already grateful for her collaboration. After this webinar, I will send you the translated presentation and the video so that you will have the material at your disposal. So, Carlos, welcome and go ahead with the presentation. Carlos, bienvenido y adelante.
Welcome, Carlos. Please proceed. Well, good morning. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. In Venezuela, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. So we are really waking up early to accompany you with this topic that is very important for us. It has to do with the good treatment in schools and how to achieve this. Let's say that if I ask you a question, what would you answer back to me? What was a positive experience that you had as a student in your school? And how do you think the teacher feel in that situation? So, of course, now Lucas is going to help me with the translations. So if you close your eyes and you think when you went to school, like an experience that impacted you as a student, what would you say? What can you share with us? I mean, I can maybe go on and say that, for example, Brother Diego was my chemistry professor. He was my headmaster. And one of the things that I remember from that experience is that it was a school, an open door school, when everyone was a part of the community and everyone had a space to be able to participate, to speak their voice, and to do what we liked to do. And we always had a teacher, a professor that accompanied us along the way throughout that whole experience. What was the most difficult for the teachers was to get us out of the school because we always wanted to stay there, be there. We felt safe and we felt accompanied and loved. And so up until this day, I am grateful to Diego, and I thank him every time that I can. So now, for you, the context that you are living with that I'm not aware of it, what is the most positive experience you had as a student when you were a kid in school?
Yes, hello, Dr. Carlos. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, as I can respond, my name is Father Alphonse Malinda Mutua. And I can say that one of the positive experiences that I had as a student was when I received presents for motivation. You know, when I received presents acknowledging my good performance, my good work as a student. So I felt good. The teacher also, of course, as he was presenting the present to me, also felt great. Thank you.
Perfecto. Muchísimas gracias.
Perfect. Thank you so much. When we feel that we are being valued, when we feel that we are being heard, when we feel that we are understood, even with mistakes, we have an adult that accompanies us and makes us see the mistake and teaches us to do it in a different way. And I think that that's where the educational experience starts. So each one of us may have had positive experiences, no doubt about it, but as well negative experience in a lot of schools in the world, in the schools, has turned into a space of violence where kids are victims of bullying. And this is part of the dynamic that we have to transform and to make sure that the school is a space of love that is formative and a protector. So the point of reference that we have is, of course, the act of the children's right. In the Article 29, it profiles to us what is the purpose of education. And I think that this is one of the most beautiful articles, most important that this document actually has. And most of all, because it says that education has to make sure that every children develops its personality, abilities, and capacities. So the school is a space for social transformation. And the school has to, of course, give respect to the human rights and freedom, liberty. Another value is also that in the school, the children have to respect the cultural identity, the diversity, and prepare them for a free society. And without any doubt, this is in need of a school with very special conditions. And a teacher, a professor that is profoundly creative and needs an open heart to be able to achieve the purpose of the education. In SECODAP, the organization where I work, we promote a model of positive discipline in the school, within the school. And we say that we make sure that the teaching is significative and that the teaching is effective. The knowledge that goes through the reason needs to go to touch the heart as well. And we say that the teaching is effective when the student is at the center, the child or the teenager. And for that, we have a few strategies. A school where the children participate. Well, he's not only a receptor of information, but to make sure that he's a protagonist of his own formation. A school with a very holistic approach where the child not only learns and acquires knowledge, but also develops values and attitudes, behaviors that are a must for an adult life. A school where we have to use the strength of each children, where the adult is not completing what lacks in the child, but the adult actually has to support what the children is actually bringing. And so to achieve that, motivation is very important. Stimulate. the climate, the environment, the school environment. It cannot be a scolding score. It has the emphasis has to be that the emphasis is to just scold, to punish the students. But the school must be the space where we project the child that we want for the future. And for that, it has to be a school that has a long-term planning, a school that doesn't prioritize only the administrative part of it. The school needs to know what must be achieved, what is the purpose of the child. Has to be responsible, has to be in solidarity, he has to be a good citizen. Those are the purposes, the aim the school must achieve. And the teaching methods must abide to those long-term objectives. And no doubt, a school that really allows for the inclusion and the participation of everybody. There are many thinkers, education thinkers. We can mention Piaget, Vygotsky, so many who developed sufficient argument topics where they indicate that education should be holistic and based on the child's development,
Donde la pedagogía
where pedagogy is the support point for the socio-affective and psychomotor development of the student. So the teacher has no doubt a very important responsibility to make sure that the child achieves his development. So through pedagogy, this is how we actually make sure that the child will achieve the potentiality that there's also sufficient arguments that indicate that education contributes to ensure that the child will achieve his the development, to promote autonomy, to make sure that this child has imagination, that he respects, that he has a communication that is empathic, among other essential skills that are the basis for an adult life. Now, this is a question that I ask you in the context that you experience. What are the obstacles that you can identify to promoting good treatment in schools? Everything that I've said up until now, why is it so difficult to implement this in your environment, in your schools? You can write it in the chat or Lucrezia can actually support us with the translation. For example, in Venezuela, I think that the main difficulty is that these topics are not a priority. For the school, this is not important. And therefore, there is not a strategy. We think that the good treatment has to be spontaneous, and it's not necessarily this way. This requires attitude, behaviors, a methodology, and most of all, an institutional decision
de participación y de
to
convivencia.
be able to promote the spaces of participations and culture. Thank you for your participation. It looks that you are describing a school in Venezuela, and that really brings my attention. I think that you that there's no spirituality in this chat. This is the reality that must be transformed. But as I listen to you, there are some actions that are macro, that are comes from the state or from public policies.
muchas veces no controlamos.
And many times we do not control. But there are other actions that do relate to the attitude of the teacher in the school, to make sure that the school is different. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not a school that is better or worse than the one that we've been through. I am talking about a different school now. We must value that the children of today's are different from the time that we were children. So in school, I'm sure that you will agree with me, there is a lot of violence. Talking a lot of violence in the plural. Violence in the school, we observe, we hear, it's the physical aggression, it's the screamings, the cry, or any act that can materialize in the school. There is a violence against the school, the abandonment, the stealing, the destruction of the school infrastructure. But there is a third violence. It's the violence of the school. This means that when the school, due to their routines, generates the violence, for example, in the system of evaluations, and then the methodology to resolve conflicts, the lack of norms, or abusive and arbitrary norms. So we must be aware that the school can also be a space that generates violence. And I think that this needs to be normalized in Venezuela. One of the difficulties that we have identified is that in the schools, teachers do not speak among themselves. They do not communicate. There's not a collaborative effort that happens. And it looks like that every grade is like an island. And the child goes from island to island without a process. And the teachers in Venezuela has valued that, and to make sure that the school has that space of participation, not only for the children, but also for the teachers. And to all of us who defend the children's right, is we're trying to see, to have an approach on how we defend this in the education. And this implies that the child cannot be only a simple receiver of information, but he needs to be a protagonist of his own education, where his point of views, opinions, and the exercise of his rights must be a practice. And we must actually go over methods that we have gone through as a children. This also includes a process of going against culture and be able to go over this vision that is very focused on the adult, and to incorporate the rights-based
docente
approach,
conozca
we
conceptos o
have
conozca la
to
convención
make
sobre el
sure
trabajo
that the teacher needs to know,
o
needs to
conozca
be
sus
aware
funciones,
of the conventions of the children's
exige
rights. And
que
this
ese docente
requires
tenga
that
la
the
claridad
teacher
necesaria
has the
para
necessary
entender la
clarity
importancia
to
de
identify
sus
the
formas
importance
y estilos
of
de intervención,
her forms and
interacción
styles of
y
intervention,
relación
the
afectiva con los niños.
interaction and the effective relationship with the children.
Si el niño se siente querido y se siente bien
The
en su escuela,
child, the child feels loved and
va a
feels
aprender
comfortable
más.
and well in the school, he's going to learn even more.
Entonces, el vínculo es una
So
estrategia
the bond
importante
is a
para los
strategy that is
aprendizajes.
very important to talk when we talk about learning.
En la medida que el niño se
You
siente bien,
know, as
va a
much
querer
as
colaborar más con su
the
docente
child
preferido.
feels well, will want to collaborate even further, even more
Y
with
yo
the
creo que esa es la
teachers and the
estrategia,
collaborators. And I think that that is a strategy.
si la implementamos,
If we implement such
los
strategy,
beneficios son a corto plazo.
the benefits will be short term.
El cambio es muy rápido si cambiamos
It's a
el clima
very
y las formas de relación.
the change is very rapid if we change the climate and the environment.
Y bueno, la convención nos da pistas, nos dice
So the convention
podemos hacer.
gives us guidance, lets
Primero,
us know
escuela
what can
y
be
una
done.
dinámica
First,
sin discriminación.
a
Ustedes
school that has a
identificaron que hay un
dynamic and
problema.
without the discrimination that you have identified as a
Tomar
problem as
decisiones
well.
en la escuela
When we make
donde
decisions
el
in the
centro de
school,
la decisión
to make
sea el
sure
niño
that the center of this decision must
y el
be the
interés
child,
sea
and
el que
that
guíe.
the interest is focused on the child.
Que es lo que la convención llama el interés superior del niño.
This is what the conventions call the superior interest of the children.
Los niños primero.
The children's
La
first.
prioridad deben ser los niños.
Priority must be the children.
Entender que todos somos corresponsables.
To understand that we are all co-responsible,
Desde el director de la escuela hasta
the director of
la
the
persona que
school,
recibe a los niños en la puerta de la escuela.
all the way down to the person who welcomes the children at the door of the school.
El reto es que seamos una comunidad educativa.
The challenge is that we must be an educational community.
Pero en muchas de nuestras escuelas
But a
no
lot
es
of our
comunidad
schools,
ni es educativa.
it's neither a community or educational.
Creo que tenemos el reto de escuchar más que
We
oír
have
a
the
los niños.
challenge of listening. We have to listen more than,
Y la escucha exige una
and the
postura mucho
listening
más activa del adulto.
requires an attitude that is a lot more active on the part of the adult.
Tenemos que involucrar a las familias como aliados.
We have to involve the families as allies.
Y al menos en nuestro contexto,
And
las
at least
familias
in our
son
context,
renuentes a participar.
families
No les gusta participar.
really don't like to participate.
Porque
They are
yo tengo
reluctant
la
to
percepción
participate
que la
because I have
escuela
this perception that the
convoca a las
school
familias siempre cuando
convokes
hay
the
problemas.
families always when there is an issue, a problem.
Pero pocas veces se convoca
Very
para
few
felicitar,
times they are called to congratulate,
para que compartan experiencias,
to share experiences,
valorar lo que hacen bien
to value what the children do well,
o reconocer cuando superan un problema.
or to recognize when they actually overcome a problem.
Y entender que la incorporación de la familia es progresiva.
And so we must understand that the incorporation of the family is a progressive
Y hay que
process,
tender puentes entre la escuela y la familia.
that we have to build bridges between schools and families,
Porque sin duda la escuela no puede sola.
because there's
Ni la
no doubt
familia
that the
puede
school
sola.
cannot do this on its own, or the families can't do
Desde
this
los
on their
niveles de
own.
derecho
So focusing on the rights to understand that all rights are important.
Por ejemplo, jugar.
For example, to play. To play in school is very important. But when we talk about play, the play implies a process that is not controlled by an adult. The child decides how to play. And in our schools, in our traditional schools, that is a space of control. If we discover the power of the learning of the education is going to be very important, but all the children's rights are important. To understand that the children are citizens. He is not a future adult, a future citizen. It's a person that is part of that community, and their opinions are very important. A teacher with clarity, that is involved and is very creative. In Latin America, the value of the teacher and the salary are it's not balanced. And in our context, sometimes it costs more for the teacher to go to the school than what he receives as a salary. However, in spite of those difficulties, there is always the teacher is always involved with what he does, and this is actually the light that must guide us to require the state, the government, for those changes, where education is valued, and of course that goes through a budget. So to form educational practices and understand that there have been changes, that society has changed. The COVID pandemic really generated the very big changes, and of course, schools must be transformed as well. And of course, to be very to have a closeness with education. Of course, this strategy of closeness has to be adapted to the different ages of the children. It's not the same for the younger children or the one for a teenager, when the emphasis is the autonomy, the identity, and is to trust him or herself. So all of that also needs that. So note here that the approach really strengthen the learning opportunities, where education is not only valued by the results that are obtained, but also by the quality of the educational processes that will allow each child to train in autonomy, responsibility, and the respect for human rights. And this looks very much like what the human rights conventions ask us to do. Now, this is the question that I will ask you. After you've listened to all this, what can we do to promote good treatment in schools? What do you believe can be done to get closer to a dream of a different school?
I invite you to talk, because it's more easy to have a translation and to have a dialogue between us.
Morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, I could contribute to that question by saying that the first step is for us to identify people who are knowledgeable in the information we are getting now.
Diego, I cannot hear him.
Yes, it's very complicated to understand you for the quality of the sound.
Sorry for that. Okay. So maybe again, maybe
Okay.
I could write.
Yeah.
Yes, may I contribute?
Okay. Okay, Alphonse.
Yeah, I think what can we do to promote good treatment in schools? Of course, there are various ways, just like what we have been doing, training, first of all the stakeholders, beginning with the school managers, the directors, the teachers, the staff, the parents, and even the children themselves to know their rights, so that they can know, especially, okay, for example, here in Kenya, of course, it's engraved in our constitution about the rights of children, especially on the Bill of Rights, and even the different laws that have been promulgated here in Kenya that safeguard children. So definitely information, I think, is paramount. Thank you.
Sí, sin duda, la formación.
No doubt, formation is a very important element that is indispensable. And also updating this in our context, our contexts are ever changing. And so a teacher that is up to date with what is happening is always paramount. Now in Venezuela, we are emphasizing a promotion of mental health in the school. We identify many children that have mood swings so that means that means children that have been diagnosed depressive or with anxiety and that also suicidal thoughts. So to talk about good treatment is also to recognize emotions. And the teacher must be mentally healthy, strengthens within his mental health. And the whole self-care strategy is key for this teacher. So visa is actually support Venezuela to be able to work with mental health strategies within the schools. How do we do this? Formation, training, for teachers, headmasters, and families. Also, a communications campaign in the schools to position the key messages regarding mental health and good treatment. We also have an element of attention as well. Those children that need a specialized support, we look for the psychosocial accompaniment strategies. And also, that support also incorporates the teacher. A teacher recognizes the psychological strategies, can support 25, 50, 100 children, or even more than that. So you must recognize that the teacher in the strategy of mental health is a good practice.
Y no se trata que el docente sea terapeuta,
And it does the teacher does not have to be a therapist.
sino que el docente tenga
That is
herramientas
not the
para
case,
escuchar y orientar
but
a
it's
los demás
necessary that the teacher has the necessary tools to listen
y
and to
pueda dar
guide
ese
the
aprendizaje de
children
atención.
and and to make sure that he can actually
Y yo he observado
diagnose
que
a first issue like
las
that. In
escuelas
Venezuela, we have
con
seen
mayores niveles de violencia
that the schools, the most violent schools,
son escuelas donde los niños
are the schools where the children
no tienen apoyo
are not supported.
y frente a un conflicto
And in front of a conflict,
no hay un adulto que escuche.
there is not a listening adult.
Y no solo que escuche, sino que ayude
But
a
not only
resolución
that
del
he's not
conflicto.
listening, but that actually can help in the resolution of the conflict.
Y cuando hablamos de buen trato en las escuelas,
And when we talk about good treatment in schools,
no significa que la
this
escuela no tenga
doesn't
conflictos.
mean that the school doesn't have conflicts.
El conflicto es inevitable en las relaciones humanas.
I mean, conflicts are inevitable in human relationships.
Lo que yo no puedo hacer el uso de la violencia para resolver el
But
conflicto.
I cannot use violence to resolve the conflict.
Entonces, la mejor escuela no
So
es la
the
que no tiene
best
conflictos,
school is not the one that doesn't have conflicts,
sino la escuela que los puede identificar a tiempo y abordar con
but it's
solución.
the school that can identify this in the beginning and can actually face it um, with quality.
Son algunas estrategias que hemos
Those are some
implementado
of the strategies that we have implemented.
y fíjense que esas estrategias
And
no
please know that
necesitan
those
recursos
strategies
exorbitantes de dinero.
do not need like enormous
Si tú las
money
condiciones
resources,
económicas
finance
generan unas
resources. I mean, of
condiciones
course,
favorables,
finance conditions can be favorable, can generate
pero
favorable
no son
conditions,
determinantes
but
para
it
una
is
buena
not
orientación.
a determining factor for the good treatment in schools.
También en el contexto de Venezuela,
In the
muchas
Venezuelan
dificultades en el
context,
tema de alimentación de los niños,
many of the difficulties in how we feed the children,
en el acceso a agua potable,
to have access to
transporte,
drinking water, transportation. And a lot of those children have been left alone due
muchos de
to
estos
the
problemas
migration
sobrepasan
process
la
in
escuela,
Venezuela. A lot of these problems really surpass the schools.
pero
However, they do have an impact on the schools. So,
debe
how can the
intensificarse
school be the catalyst of these needs?
una escuela
How to do
aliada con
this
otras.
as a school that is in a network, that is an allied with other schools?
Si la escuela se aísla,
If the school
es mucho más
isolates
vulnerable
itself, the school will be a lot more vulnerable.
y ese aislamiento afecta a los niños.
And that isolation really impacts the children.
Entonces, además de las estrategias dentro de la escuela,
So, besides the
deben haber
strategies
estrategias
within the school,
fuera de la escuela
there are also external strategies,
que nos
externals to the
ayuden
school,
a
that will
construir
help us
esa escuela de
to
nuestros sueños.
build that dream school that we look for.
Y aquí yo los invito
And here I
a
do
seguir
invite
reflexionando
you to
y
keep reflecting
descubrir, o más bien
and to
resignificar
discover
el concepto de
or
educación,
resignify the
educar.
concept of education or educate.
¿Para qué educamos?
Why do we educate?
Entendiendo que educar
Understanding
es un
that
proceso
educate is a
que
process
buscamos que los niños aprendan a
because
vivir y a convivir
we
con otros.
aims to form the children to live and coexist
Por lo tanto, la
with
educación
all. So
tiene
therefore,
distintas
education
eh,
has different support aspects.
Ese niño tiene que adquirir conocimientos en la escuela, sin duda.
This child has to acquire knowledge in school, no doubt about this,
Vinculados a la ciencia, el
that
lenguaje,
are linked to
a las
science,
ciencias
to the
sociales.
language,
Tiene que
to
aprender.
social sciences. He must learn all of this.
Pero a su vez, ese niño tiene que desarrollar
But at the
valores.
same time, this child has to develop values.
Y el valor se materializa con el
And the
ejemplo
value materializes with the example
y en la práctica.
and in the practice.
No podemos hablar de buen trato en las escuelas
We cannot talk about good treatment in schools
cuando el docente no modela
when
el
the
comportamiento
teacher is not modeling the behavior.
y no se le puede exigir a un niño algo
And you cannot require something from a child
que yo no practico a nivel personal.
that I do not practice at my personal level.
Yo no le puedo pedir a un niño no grites.
I cannot ask a child to not to scream when I scream,
Sé puntual cuando yo soy impuntual.
to be on time when I am not on time.
Entonces la coherencia es clave para hablar
So
de valores.
coherence is key here to be able to talk about values.
También la educación tiene que ir orientada a participar en la comunidad.
And education has to be oriented into participating within the community,
Adquirir criterio propio que cada
to
niño pueda
acquire
pensar
one's
por sí
own
propiamente.
criteria, to make sure that every child can actually think on his own,
Responsabilizarse de sus decisiones y de sus
and also
comportamientos.
taking responsibilities for personal decisions and behavior.
Todo el tema de
The
educación
whole
emocional y de afecto
topic of emotional education, of
que el niño sepa
affection,
comprender y saber expresar
to make
cómo se
sure
siente.
that the child is able to understand and express or her own emotions.
Es válido sentir rabia,
It's
es
fair
humano
to
sentir
feel
rabia o
enraged.
tristeza.
It's human to be angry or to be sad.
Lo que yo no puedo por esa rabia lastimar a otros.
But because of that anger or rage, I cannot hurt someone else.
Hay que aprender a reconocerla
So one has to be able to recognize this
y poderla regular.
and be able to regulate the emotion.
Y muchas veces el docente es clave para esos procesos.
And many times the teacher is the key factor with those processes.
Y entender que la educación
And also one must understand that education
no solo es un proceso individual,
is not only an individual process,
sino es un proceso social
but it's also a social process
donde somos seres sociales y
where we are
necesitamos
social
aprender
beings
a ser personas
and
con
where we
otros.
need to learn to be people with others.
Y esto se apunta mucho con
And
la
this
promoción del buen
really
trato en las escuelas.
really this happens with the promotion of the good treatment in school.
Que son
Citation, a
recomendaciones
recommendation that
que
I
se
give
dictan
to you, and I'm going to leave it here for you to reflect
lo
on
pueden
this, to
pensar
meditate on this.
que
You
no hay
can think about this is that
promoción del buen trato
there is no promotion of good treatment
sin la participación activa de los niños.
without the active participation of children.
Eso implica
And this
superar
implies
los
to
miedos,
overcome the fears,
las resistencias
resistance,
y
the not knowing, the
superar
unknown,
los
and
mitos
most of all, to
de la
overcome the
educación
myth
que nosotros recibimos como
of the education that we have received as children.
eso es determinante.
I think that this is
Y
the determining
podemos agregarle
factor.
gráfico,
And I
esta
am
imagen
also going to give you
sobre
this image
el rol del docente.
um, about the teacher's role.
Un docente promotor del buen trato.
a teacher
¿Qué
that
debería
promotes good treatment?
ejercer? ¿Cuáles son sus roles?
What are his or her roles?
Y esto es una lista básica.
And this is a
Pueden haber
very
otras
basic list.
competencias.
We can have more
Yo creo que
competencies here.
el docente
I think
tiene
that
que,
the
para ser un docente
teacher,
promotor del buen trato,
to be a teacher that promotes good treatment,
debe entender el desarrollo infantil.
I think that he must understand the child development.
Debe conocer que el niño pasa por distintos momentos
He must recognize that the child goes through different evolutionary process, and his reality and his needs will change.
Si el docente conoce de desarrollo evolutivo,
If the teacher knows about this evolutionary process development,
puede comprender mejor lo que ocurre con su estudiante.
he can probably understand much better what is going on with his student.
Y algunas orientaciones. El
Some
docente debe tener
guidelines
expectativas
here,
apropiadas.
orientations, the teacher must have appropriate expectations.
El docente ejerce un rol
The teacher has a
sustituto de la
role,
familia,
but is not a substitute for the family
ni sustituye al Estado.
and substitute the government, the
Entonces
state.
es prudente
So it would be prudent
que el docente tenga expectativas claras y apropiadas.
for the teachers to have very clear and adequate expectations.
También es importante que el
It's also
docente
very important
respete las
to make
diferentes
sure that
perspectivas
the
que ocurren en la
teachers
escuela.
respect the different perspectives that happen in a school.
La escuela es un espacio de construcción colectiva
It has to promote a space for a collective building.
y por lo tanto el docente tiene que estar abierto
And
a
therefore, the
distintas
teacher must
perspectivas
be
de distintos
open to
temas.
different perspectives and different topics, different arguments.
Creo que también el docente tiene que reconocer el
I think
impacto
that
de
the
las diferencias
teacher
individuales.
also have to recognize the impact of the individual differences.
Si en un salón de clase
If in a school room
tenemos 30 niños,
we have 30 kids,
hay 30 estilos de aprendizaje y ritmos de aprendizaje.
those are 30 different styles of learning and rhythm of learning as well.
Entonces, ¿cómo adapto mis estrategias
So how do I adapt my strategies
para poder incluir y llegar a los 30?
to be able to include and reach to each one of the 30 students?
Hay niños que son más kinestésicos,
I mean, some children are more active, some children are more reflective,
hay niños que son más pragmáticos,
some children are more pragmatic,
hay niños que son más teóricos,
some children are more
pero todos tienen en común
theoretical, but all have in common the
la
listening
motivación.
and the motivation.
Luego mis estrategias se adaptarán, pero
So my
respetando
strategies
esas
are going
diferencias
to adapt to each one of those different differences.
y otro elemento clave es entender
Another
el rol del
key
docente en un
element
conflicto.
is to understand the role of the teacher when there is a conflict. The teacher must identify the risk factors, know what to do in a context of violence. The teacher must know about pedagogy, but also about the children's rights and also of the attention span.
Y el docente tiene que tener estrategias de
And the
comunicación.
teacher must have communication strategy.
Y hemos encontrado docentes donde
And we have found the
cuesta
teachers
mucho
where
que asuman ese rol de comunicador
where they find very difficult to actually assume,
y de
take on this
facilitar
role of
consensos.
communicator and to facilitate consensus. So we actually, they stand behind a very traditional school that is punitive, where the final of a conflict this way is the expulsion from the school or the scolding or the punishment.
Y la expulsión no
And the
ataca
expulsion
lo
is
estructural del comportamiento del niño que queremos
does
modificar.
not actually attack the structural part of the child that we want to modify.
Y yo recomiendo
And I recommend
que no se trata solo atender el conflicto,
that it's
Por
not
eso
only
mismo.
to attend to the conflict or the violence.
es cómo la podemos evitar.
How can we, but also how can we avoid
Y eso
this
es un elemento determinante
to happen? And
a la
that
hora
is
de
a
comentar.
very determining element when we
Hay una
talk about
escuela
good treatment.
en,
There is a
en
school
La Vega, cerca de la
in
Universidad Católica donde yo trabajo,
in La Vega, very close to the Catholic University where I work.
donde tiene una metodología interesante
They have a very interesting methodology.
que los docentes
Is that teachers,
conocen los entornos familiares de los niños.
they are aware of the family environment around the
Y tienen
children.
información detallada
They
de
have
lo que
very
ocurre en la
detailed
familia.
information of what happens within the families.
Y en algunos casos visitan las familias.
And in some cases, they also visit the families.
Digo esto porque en la medida que el docente
I say this because
conoce a sus estudiantes,
for as much as much as the teacher knows his students,
va a tener mejores herramientas de apoyo.
he will have a much better access to support tools for the student in question.
Y eso es determinante.
And I think that this is very important. It's
En muchos casos,
in a lot of the cases,
como docentes, un rol que podemos desempeñar
teachers, one of the roles that actually we can
es escuchar,
take upon is to listen,
es acompañar.
to accompany,
Y no necesariamente el docente tiene la
and not
respuesta
necessarily
a los problemas de los niños.
that the teacher will have an answer to the issues that the children are going through.
Pero si el docente conecta
But if the
con las
teacher
preocupaciones
connects
del niño
with what is worrying
y
the
convertimos el
child,
conflicto
and we manage to transform a conflict in a moment of education. So
analizamos
it
y
depends
asumimos lo
how
que
we
necesita.
see, how we analyze, and we assume what is happening. So
Compartir
those are very key ideas that I wanted to share with you. So
y
in
se
the
los comparto en el chat.
web page in the SECO DAP that I'm going to share with you in the chat, you
Artículos,
will find articles,
videos, recursos,
videos,
bueno, que pueden tomar parte
resources
para
that you can
comenzar
actually
este proceso
see in order
de
for you to start with the process
una
of
escuela basada en
building
buen trato.
a school
Les
that is
comparto dos
based on
experiencias
good
que
treatment. I am
hicimos
going to
en
share
las
with you
escuelas.
2 experiences that we
Hicimos
had in a
una,
couple of schools.
una
We
campaña que se llamó
organized a
Dosis de
campaign
Amor para la
called
Convivencia Pacífica.
Love Doses for a Very Peaceful Coexistence.
Y replicamos el modelo de la
And
vacunación
we
para los niños.
replicated the model of vaccination for the children.
Era, cada niño tenía una tarjeta
Each child had a
similar a
card
las tarjetas de vacunación.
very similar to the vaccination cards,
Y eran 3 dosis. Eran
and
3
that we had
ciclos la campaña.
three doses. The
Las
campaign had
dosis al
3
respeto,
different phases. The first doses was respect,
la segunda dosis el
the
amor
second doses was love,
y la tercera dosis la confianza.
and the third doses was trust.
Y eso lo hicimos en un contexto de alta
And we did
polarización
that
y conflictividad
in
social.
a context of very high polarization and social conflicts in the country.
Entonces la metodología era
So the methodology was in the school, the children would actually vaccinate their parents. So, for example, for the first doses, we would ask them, how do they get involved with love? How would they get engaged with love? So the child would sign the card and was given a candy. And so we went through 3 vaccination days. Different values, you can use whatever values resonate the most within each one of you. And through that experience that happened in the school, we used to go to squares, to train stations, and we replicated that model with other people. Another experience we called the Good Treatment Passport. We would give a little booklet very similar to a passport where the aim, the purpose was to build good treatment communities. And what identified us as a community was the passport itself. So at the time to turn in the passport, the child would take all the information of the adult or other children and would write all of his commitments to build this good treatment community. So that was distributed in the entire school. And of course, we accompanied all this with the cultural and artistical activities, but the finality was the passport and the good treatment community. Those were 2 experiences. And even today, many schools actually apply this, and all these experiences have been very positive. So we've also went through theater experiences. We did one time, we did a theater, the theater of the absurd. We did a play. And the children represented the violent situation in the school. But they did this by representing a circus. And the characters of this circus were victims of violence. They exaggerated the acting, but they were actually transmitting how those characters felt as victims of violence. We had another experience where we met with a group of teenagers to talk about problems. I mean, the things that they actually wanted to talk about. And in one dynamic, it was we asked them if they needed music, if they needed to put music to what they had written. How would this music be? And students went through the exercise. We presented the material to a musical producer, and he really evaluated this positively. So we asked if there was someone who could actually sing the songs. And that producer told the students, he said, they don't sing. Okay, so bring them in the studio. And at the end, those kids ended up actually doing a record, producing a record. And that was a very positive experience of participation. So as you can see, there are many opportunities that can actually happen in the schools. So my recommendation is to you know, open ears, open eyes to see what the children are saying, what they're proposing, and then how are you going to guide those process and to make sure that the schools are a space of love, affection, protection. Diego, I think that we have a few minutes, and I would like to please let us know these moments that we have talked about. What actually, what are you taking with you? What is resonating with this within you, within your heart, within your minds?
Okay, we have some minutes. It's good to have a good a little dialogue about that, because it's good to have a feedback about all these ideas. And of course, we have a third webinar where we will talk. The next webinar in 1 week, we will talk, we will discuss, and we will decide maybe a little project to work together. So at this moment, what do you think about all the ideas that Carlos has shared with us?
Yo, Diego, te puedo compartir los materiales.
Diego, I can share with you all the materials from this campaign. So you can probably share this with all the colleagues, and they can adapt them. They can come up with an idea that maybe they want to replicate. So many things can be done. The issue here is to dare use creativity, use your imagination. This is a strategy. When we talk about good treatments, it's not something that is unimaginable. It's not something that it is impossible. But yes, you must make that decision and have the will to go through it and do it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Maybe we need time to reflect. We need time to review the first webinar on resilience. We had a very good information about resilience, and we need time to reflect about all the strategies for a good treatment. So maybe for the next week, we will work together the two themes about resilience and good treatment. We will try to work in the process to adapt some alternative for working together in a new step. Okay. I will try to give you information, all the material translated into English, okay? The video of this presentation also. And maybe with Brother Antun, we can prepare the next webinar, okay? Because it's good to listen our ideas and to work together. Are you okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Diego, en el canal de YouTube.
Diego, in the YouTube channel of SECODAB, there is a series that is called Learn with Warmth. So if you look that in the YouTube channel to learn Aprender con Calidez, SECODAB, I think that you are going to see 16 people sharing their experiences, educators as well as not educators, where we document what they do to promote the good treatment in schools. What is interesting about this audiovisual material that you will find there is that the teachers did not know each other. But however, you can observe those common strategies that they are implementing. I am not tell you what the strategies are so that you can look for them and you can look for them, but they're very, very interesting. There are some teachers, there's a surfing instructor, there's a sport instructor, there's a music teacher. There is a lot of diversity in people, but they have very interesting strategies. So I invite you to look at it. Actually, I'm going to send the link to Diego for him to share it with you. It is subtitled in English, and you can really watch it very easily.
Okay, excellent idea to listen and to reflect. So I think we need time, okay? I think we need to learn, we need to listen to, we need to read papers. And we have another webinar for working together. So this time, I thanks to Carlos for this presentation. I think SECODAP in Venezuela, they have a lot of good experience. It's a reference for the country about the work of children and adolescents. And thank you, Lucrecia, for the translation, and all of you for your passions, for your presence here. And we will continue to work together in order to build a good project, a little project, but well done, for arrive to a good objective for the good treatment of the children in our schools. Okay, so in 1 week, we will be together. Okay?
Thank you.
Brother Antun,
Thank you.
that's okay?
Thank you very much, Brother Diego, for organizing this webinar, and also for Dr. Carlos. Thank you very much for the presentation. And the entire team of ICSG, I can see they are here, a number of them. Welcome, team. It's a long time since we see each other. Thank you, too. Eston, do you have anything for finalize?
Well, I'm so grateful. The materials, the information is so insightful.
Mm-hmm.
And we really and seriously, for the sake of the child, in the child's best interest, we're really looking forward as a team to see these projections in terms of projects really working for the best of interest of the child. So Diego and all organizers and all of us, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot. And we will finish our transmission right now. And have a good day, have a good work. And in a week, we will be together, okay? Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.